Work on this, LSU 5 Position Battles segment. Now, as we said yesterday, sometimes I can feel a bit like a YouTube React channel, only reacting to articles instead of videos. And that's, again, what the kind of basis for this is, as this was all a Wilson Alexander article in The Advocate today. Top 5 LSU battles, basically watch going into camp. Now, what I found fascinating, though, is that this is something that, if I'm hand to God, if I'm being honest, okay, I started to put this together as a bit of a time filler, right? You were out. People like sports talk in the 7 o'clock hour. It's something that I could probably do with my eyes closed, right? And I could just quite literally fill the time. What maybe took me aback a little bit here, Jake, is how, and maybe this is just because I love football. Maybe this is simply because we cover LSU football so much and I have so many thoughts on it. But what took me aback is when I actually started to do this sincerely, how much I actually enjoyed it and how much I feel it really is to say when you look at the positions that we are about to dive into. So
you do seem a little giddy.
I do.
Giddiness to you?
Well, you know what? Then that's enough preamble. Let's dive right in. Where we are starting with, of course we're starting here. We are
fullback.
starting. No. Who would be the fullback? Jack Mashburn?
Yeah, probably.
Right? Yeah. I guess, even though Denbrock basically said they don't have fullbacks, right? When we talked to him, didn't he say that they're just using tight ends as fullbacks now?
Brian Kelly did say at SEC spring meetings that they would have one. So it might be a tight end, which doesn't normally count, but I'll count it here.
Sorry, I'm sending out a tweet, link to the show. Okay, you believed him. You don't think he was just placating you. He was just patronizing you at SEC Media Days when he said that. Maybe so. Time will tell. Okay, so let's start where? With quarterback. That's right, dude. The queen on the board, the most important position. We just talked to Mike Denbrock basically about how this will be decided. It was interesting to me, Jake, then when we asked Denbrock, what's going to decide this battle, he didn't. Absolutely, look, it's going to be the decisions you make. It's going to be the throws you can make. It's going to be, can you make the right calls? But coming out of spring, a lot of that stuff seemed to be relatively similar. What interested me about the Denbrock answer, Jake, is he kept going back to this idea of basically who isn't afraid of the stage, right? Who wants to be LSU quarterback and all the pressure that comes with that. As your year one in the Brian Kelly era, as you have an offensive line that you'll be playing behind that has a ton of question marks, which we'll get to right here. But it's an interesting kind of framework to put in your mind as you start to discuss guys, because you maybe answer that question, okay, who out of this group do we think would want it the most? And to be clear up front here, I'm not including Walker Howard simply because I think redshirting for him makes all the sense of the world, but maybe he does come and just blow you away somehow from the outside looking in. But I think here you probably want to focus on the big three. And as we said, it's interesting this quarterback room is because nothing is decided, but it's maybe the most talent you've had since 2007. And then you kind of have, Jake, a Goldilocks setup, right? You have Miles Brennan, the 6-year senior, who has been here the longest, likely the safest play, right. but the guy who has the most arm talent, the most traditional pocket passer. If Goldilocks was to break in and taste Miles, it would be like, this guy throws too much. And then you have Jaden Daniels, Arizona State transfer, who, of course, his strength lies in running the ball. And then you have Garrett Nussmeier, who in the Goldilocks analogy kind of represents a bit of the just right zone. Jake, as a starting point here, when you think about these three names, do you give anybody the inside track?
That's what's weird about this quarterback battle is the fact that it's hard to say, okay, well, I think this guy's a leader in the clubhouse. He would have to blow it in camp. I truly feel like it's like, okay, we got three guys, go and win the job. Now, I'm not saying that's a great position to be in either, because you probably want to have somewhat of a pecking order, and maybe they do. Obviously, the coaches, they know way better than us. They've broken down the film. They've met all summer about this, but I think Garrett Nussmeier made it difficult for the coaches in the spring, and I mean that in a good way. They probably weren't expecting him to play as well as he did, because I don't think you talk Miles into coming back and you accept Jaden coming in if you thought Nuss was going to fully be in this battle.
Yeah.
But he played his way into it. Like when you go out to practice, I mean, he flashed every time I was out there, and I probably went to 8 practices, and he would make a play every single time. So going into it, I'm not sure that there is to you a pecking order. Now, it depends on what they're looking for at quarterback truly. You know, do they want Miles, who doesn't have the game experience, but obviously being a 6-year guy, knowing LSU, knowing his teammates, all of that? Do they want Jaden Daniels to come in? Certainly his freshman year, it makes you want to find a way, be that person that can pull that magic back out. You want to be the coach that can find that magic, bring it back to the table. And then with Garrett Nussmeier, I find a comp in Brian Kelly's offense in Ian Book. I know some people said Daniels. No. Garrett Nussmeier reminds me of Ian Book. Just the way he moves, the way he throws. He can throw from any arm angle. He can throw in the move. He can throw in the pocket. He's got a little bit of an athletic ability that if he had to run, he could definitely run. Not saying he's a runner, but he can make it happen with his legs as well. So I don't know what the pecking order is. I hope they figured out pretty quickly, as we asked Coach Denbrock the other day when he was on.
And he said he wants to do it. I mean, he said sooner rather than like later. Like he wants to have this thing, like you said, like a week and a half into camp, I think, ideally.
But the thing is, like, Miles doesn't have a ton of starts. He has 3 starts in his career.
Yeah.
Nuss has a game played, but he doesn't have a start. I mean, even Max started that game against Arkansas. And you just don't know how Jaden Daniels is going to come into the SEC. So there's a lot of talent there. There's 30 starts there.
Yeah.
But still, this league's a little bit different than the Pac-12.
Yeah, so I feel like Miles is the most kind of known quantity in all of this. If you're looking for just solid kind of experience and a leader, I think he's there. I think Jaden Daniels probably has the most opportunity to improve in the shortest amount of time. I mean, one of the mind-boggling things about Daniels is still his freshman year stats are like unreal. Like, they go beyond good. Like, they're, like, unreal. The 17 TDs to 3 interceptions. I think it was, like, 65% completion off the top of my head. I want to say it was nearly 3,000 yards. But he's never been able to reattain that form. And he didn't look great in spring. But then again, transfer, new culture, new coaches, new everything. So because everything was so new and he was basically trying to show out just weeks after getting here, his opportunity to improve, or his, like, kind of zone in which he can improve, I think, is potentially massive. And then, like you said, Jake, with Nussmeier, it maybe feels like he has the highest ceiling of the 3. The last thing I would say on quarterback is one of the interesting points here is, in terms of age and experience, is what this position battle means to each guy. In that, for Nussmeier, he is competing with a couple of guys in Jaden Daniels and Miles Brennan who know this is their final chance. Yeah. This is the true back against the wall, do it, or you're never going to get to do it ever again moment for both those guys. And so if Nuss wins that battle, then that speaks to someone who is playing very, very well.
Do you have a leader in the clubhouse?
I've waffled back and forth. I mean, I think, gun to my head, if I had to place a bet, I would say Brennan. But
it's hard not. If you've been around LSU, if you've been a fan, if you've paid attention, full disclosure, it is hard not to root for Miles Brennan.
Yeah, and I root and yeah, I mean, and who knows, man? Maybe I even have like some inherent bias, as well as, he's been dating my cousin for a while. I've said him on air multiple times, so I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to hide any of this. If this was a legal case, I would probably recuse myself from the investigation. But no, I'm not alone in saying the kind of lazy conservative take that I think it's Miles, because he has a lot of built-in advantages, right? Like we said, most arm talent, the oldest. When you hear coaches talk about him, it seems like they feel that, and then got the first crack at it, I believe, in the spring game as well.
Jaden rolled out there first.
Okay,
there was two. There was 2 first teams.
Yeah. So you can't really even judge that anyway.
Yeah, remember, it was offense versus defense, not really a team.
So we will see. So that is quarterback. The next position I want to talk about is cornerback, and this where the framing of this gets interesting to me, Jake. It is the inverse of QB, right? At quarterback right now, that's a position where you traditionally haven't been great, but you feel like you have a great amount of talent. In cornerback, that's a position where traditionally you have been great, but right now you're kind of wondering, okay, how good is the talent? And there's a lot of pressure on Steeples to get this position group right, as he replaces a legend in Corey Raymond. And the guys he's going to look to do it with are Jarek Bernard-Converse, all Big 12 last year, was hurt during the spring, so we didn't get to watch him, but you would think he would start for sure on the outside. You have Sevyn Banks, the still young Ohio State transfer, where he got starts for the Buckeyes in the past. You got Mekhi Gardner, started on a very good UL team. Interesting to me in that he's kind of the opposite of Banks, Jake, where we give Sevyn Banks credit because of the brand name of Ohio State. Mekhi Gardner, due to, I think, LSU kind of pride and dynamics, maybe gets dinged a little bit just because he came from UL. He's not going to get as much kind of inherent respect. And then you have Greg Brooks, who is penciled in as the nickel,
which might be the
DB.
most important of all the positions.
Yeah, well, and the weird thing about that is who's backing up Greg Brooks right now. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to see once camp rolls around. But how are you feeling about this cornerback position?
I mean, just think if you didn't have the transfer portal,
yeah,
where this group would be. I mean, every one of these players that you're mentioning, obviously, as you laid out, is a transfer. Now, when you look at Converse, I mean, all Big 12, you feel good about where he's at. When you watch the tape, and I've watched this young man for a very long time. I mean, he's from Shreveport, went to the same high school that I went to, so he's been a player for a long time.
I didn't know he was Evangel.
Yeah, he went to Evangel, so he's a really good player. Like I said, it wasn't just like a flash in the pan a year ago. Gardner, same thing. They love him in the building, right? Because, hey, these coaches from all over the country, they don't know the dynamic between Louisiana Lafayette and LSU. They don't care about that.
Like, and to be clear,
they
that's
love him
irrational.
in the building.
Yeah, I'm not saying that is a logical base upon which to build. I just think the natural fan reaction is
you're exactly right.
Ohio State, UL.
No, you're exactly right. But they love his length in the building. I mean, when you see him, you're not going to think that he plays corner. Like, the wild card here is, okay, what can Sevyn Banks give you? Like, there's been times at Ohio State he's been a really, really good player, and there's been times that he struggled, but the talent is there. Now, can you get the most out of that talent? Like, he came here for a reason, right? He wants to be a part of LSU. He's a big, I don't want to say question mark, but he is a big piece to this puzzle.
Yeah.
Because he's got to be a player for you this year, because Greg Brooks is going to be the nickel. I mean, which is one of the most important positions in all of football now with the way offenses run 11 personnel out there almost every single play. So if Banks is going to be that third corner, maybe he's the backup nickel. Maybe he's kind of the jack of all trades kind of guy.
Makes sense.
He's got to have a crucial season, because they're looking for bodies out there. They want to have some experience, and he has experience. He's played. It's not like he went to Ohio State and didn't play. I mean, he played at Ohio State, so it just was a little inconsistent. They need that consistency from him this year.
Yeah, so cornerback, again, I think the kind of fascinating narrative is trying to continue the tradition of DBU in a post-Corey Raymond world, and then the fact that, you had to kind of go to the transfer portal and bring in some mercenaries to try to make that happen. And Mekhi Gardner is the one that I'm interested as well, and that can he kind of prove a lot of that natural bias that is being set against him wrong. When we get back, we got a few more positions to get to. Let's talk about the group that's going to try to help the quarterback stay alive, and that is the offensive line. Off the bat, one thing I love about the O-line is Brad Davis. When you look at where the O-line was at the beginning of last year, which was awful, which is getting your ass kicked in the trenches by UCLA, versus where they finished, right, including setting the record against Florida, getting a 1,000-yard rusher, becoming a legitimately pretty good group by year's end. And then you look at the timing of Brad Davis getting the job randomly in the late summer, so not having time to learn this group, to be able to coach this group, kind of having to just hit the ground running. When you look at that improvement, yes, well, you can see how it becomes very exciting to see what Brad Davis could do with a full offseason under his belt. So that is the first thing that I feel good about with this offensive line, is him being at the helm of it. And then I think when you talk about this group, you can't not talk about Will Campbell. We talked to Jacoby and Guillory in studio the other day, and he talked up Campbell and the O-line in general, saying that the new faces they got can play. And what's crazy, though, Jake, this really drives home what a kind of how much is up in the air with that position group, is that the true freshman, Will Campbell, is maybe arguably the most set-in-stone starter. There's a lot of different directions they could go once you get past the big left tackle.
Which is crazy. I mean, he wasn't even supposed to be here in the spring, and he not only came in, but he solidified himself as a starter at left tackle. Now, much like the cornerbacks that we just talked about, this room is going to be dependent on transfers, guys coming in from other places. Now, they've played there, so they do have that experience, but it makes you a little nervous, the fact that you're going to have a true freshman. You're going to have guys playing different positions than they played a year ago in multiple spots, and you're going to have a center who has played, but he's moved all over the place. He's been a tight end. He's been a tackle.
Yeah.
He's been a guard. And you know more than anybody here how important that position is.
Yeah, so I think that – do you agree with this, Jake? I don't know if I'm 100% willing to commit to this, but I kind of feel like there may not be a bigger swing group, position group, not a bigger swing position group on the entire team in terms of affecting win-loss, right? Like, we know all the old cliches, starts in the trenches, one up front, right? Okay, well, if those are the cliches, and you have a group that we really don't know what exactly it's going to look like, it could be really good, really bad, maybe somewhere in between. What's interesting is I think Charles Turner at center is like a microcosm of that greater dynamic in that he, as the leader of the O-line, is a guy that has to make the calls, make sure there's cohesion there. He will go a long way towards deciding the fate of the group, which will then go a long way deciding the fate of the team. So no, when I look at this group, dude, I don't think it's even close. Even with a true freshman starting left tackle, I feel like Charles Turner has the most pressure on him to perform this year, and he's a redshirt junior. So it's like if it's definitely if a not now win type of situation. And then once you get out of there, yeah, like Tremont Short started at left guard in the spring game, Miles Frazier at right guard, Cam White at right tackle, but those are not battles that are decided. Like, I still want to see what Anthony Bradford, Garrett Dellinger was very excited for. He got hurt last year.
Yeah, they both missed spring.
Yes.
Yeah, they both. So you didn't have the opportunity to see if they would be in the starting lineup. Bradford, I mean, ups and downs. Certainly had peaks and valleys in his career. You've been excited about him. You've been disappointed by him. So, can this new staff get the most out of him? Now, Dellinger's somebody that I think if he would have been healthy, you would have seen him in the competition for right tackle.
Yeah.
I think he looks like a right tackle. He plays like a right tackle. I think he can be a starter for you. And also, you like Cam Wire much better at right tackle than you did left tackle a year ago. So you have bodies. You have guys like a Cam Wire who has multiple games starting at left tackle in the SEC and held his own at many, many times. That's going to be a position battle. Now, Bradford, can he play his way into that? That's going to be seen. Cardell Thomas, kind of the same thing as Bradford. Like, there's been some ups. There's certainly been some downs. You're waiting to kind of see what he can give you as well. Now, he's improved. He's done a lot of things that, I'd be honest with you, we didn't know if he'd be able to do. He's been on the field a little bit. In the spring, he played more. So this group of coaches seems to, maybe get the most out of him and is trying to find a way to maybe get him some playing time.
Well, it's a great chance for Thomas for the slate clean type of deal, right?
Yeah.
There's no lingering maybe animosity or anything from a coach that was like, oh, you're supposed to be a 5-star. Now you're not doing this. Like they didn't have to really go hard to get him to be here, which means that he has a chance to prove them that he can be different. You also have Emory Jones, a true freshman that can maybe factor in some ways. And as far as Dellinger and Bradford goes, yeah, they're guys who can be tackles or guards. And then Marlon Martinez as well. So up front, there's a lot of playing time to be had. The bottom line is that, well, Charles Turner needs to be very good. Will Campbell has to do the impossible task of being a true freshman SEC left tackle. And then everyone needs to be supremely motivated to try to earn that playing time. The next group here, we just spent a couple minutes on Jake. Or actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and go to break, and then we'll wrap up our very friendly, sports talky LSU position groups here on OTB. Let's wrap up our position group conversation here.
Hey, dude.
Yeah.
We have this should have been 6 weeks ago. So I actually feel like if we want to go 3 segments on this, we can go 3 segments.
Okay, so inside linebacker. This is a group that I think has a lot of options. I think the debate comes in over the quality of the options. I fall on the side of optimism. Maybe that's just me naturally, but I actually like the options from a talent standpoint. You got Mike Jones Jr. and Greg Penn, who were kind of the starters during the spring, but you still have Micah Baskerville, a 5th-year senior who multiple times in his career has come on the field and kind of changed the entire dynamic of the LSU defense. You got the Virginia transfer West Weeks, whose little brother just committed as well, who I don't know fully what to make of. You got the South Carolina transfer, Colby Fields, same thing, don't know. You got the very exciting 5-star freshman Harold Perkins, Brian Kelly's first ever out-of-state 5-star as LSU head coach. And then you got Jared Small, the 6-year senior, who would have started last year had he not, tragically torn his ACL right before the season started. So again, I don't know who starts here, but I like the talent. And quite frankly, I love Matt House. Honey Badger told me to love Matt House, which goes a long way. Tyron's word carries a lot. But also, mean, look, he's been doing the NFL, man. So you imagine he could get the most out of this group, like Blake Baker did, quite frankly, last year.
Yeah, that's a great point. Blake Baker did a hell of a job. I mean, maybe underappreciated job of what he did with that group. So, okay, I actually really like this group. I think this group's got a lot of talent. This group has a lot of experience as well. I mean, Micah Baskerville, you go back 2018 in the swamp, Jacob Phillips misses that game. Who's next to Devin White?
Yep.
Micah Baskerville.
Yep.
Right. So he's been doing it a long time. Now there's been some things that have kept him away from the team. And so if he's fully balled in, he's back, like he'll play. He'll play some way, somehow he'll be on the field. Now, Greg Penn getting those reps in the spring, and he's a name that we heard from the coaches time and time again. So they do, in fact, like him. There's no doubt in my mind that Mike Jones Jr. is going to be on the field.
Yeah.
He's a vocal leader. He is one of the leaders of the overall team, not just the defense and certainly just not the linebacker room. So you've got three guys right there that I feel like are going to play. Now, West Weeks and Fields, I don't know where they fit on the defense. They feel right now like teams guys, but still some depth there. I mean, West Weeks is somebody, you go back at the end of the year at Virginia, he made a lot of plays. In fact, getting after the quarterback a little bit as well. So he can play. I don't know if he gets on the field on the defensive side of things early in the season, the middle portion, or late, but he can play. He did it at Virginia a year ago, but feels like a teams guy kind of out of the gate, which there's nothing wrong with that. And then with the five-star freshman, Harold Perkins, we'll have to see. You got to see what he can give you. He's a freshman, all freshman. Kind of hit reset once they get here, as y'all all know, but a very talented player. And then there's Jared Small. You root for Jared Small. You hope Jared Small finds a way. I mean, last year, heartbreaking that he tore his ACL. He is a walk-on, earned his spot, earned a scholarship, did it, everything the right way. Will he be on the field? I hope so. I can see him maybe in some nickel and dime packages, maybe some third down stuff. That's obviously where he excels. So you have 6 linebackers, T,
that's what I'm saying. I like
if they
those
played,
numbers,
I mean, you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're talking inside linebacker specifically here. So 6 guys that you feel like capable of playing. And then you combine that with Matt House. Yeah, reason to be excited. I could go on about kicker for a while. The one thing I would say about kicker is LSU has kind of had a pretty great run of kickers in this golden age, right? From Colt David to Josh Asper. Colby Delahousse was excellent. A couple bad years then, but then you had Cole Tracy, Cade York. Simply, the thing that you need to see out of special teams this year is it is a big prove-it year, as one thing that never fell by the wayside over the last 2 years was special teams. Greg McMahon took special teams that were very bad when he got here. He made them elite. He kept them elite. Can they keep that going? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, spoiled. Beyond spoiled. You had a kicker that was the best in the country over the last couple of years. He was automatic from anywhere on the field. Some big shoes to fill. You hope you don't notice it, because that means they're doing their job.
Okay, real quick, just to put a final little bow on the LSU position group stuff. The kickers' names who will be in the mix. Nathan Dibbert's the number 2 kicker in the 2022 class. So highly rated high school cat, maybe it's him. Ezekiel Mata is the one who hit the 48-yarder in the spring game. He's a sophomore. And then you got a Northwestern transfer, Trey Finnison, who specialized in kickoffs in 2019. And that's something else to think about replacing is Avery Atkins. Maybe that's Finnison, maybe it's Dibbert.